these new directions on quarantine, and apparently we're waiting for an official announcement, but what was previously 14 days, or in some cases 10 days, I think some people, it's going to come down to 7 days, the self-isolation or quarantine period. Dr. Hilary's here, as always.
So this is what they're looking at.
They are looking at it.
To have a look to see whether it would encourage more people to comply.
Yeah.
But, I mean, welcome back to you, Dr. Hilary, actually, because you've been off for a week as well. I hope you had a lovely time, did you?
I did have a nice rest, thank you.
Good, very well deserved. What did you make of this? Because we've all been told that we needed to self-isolate for 14 days. If you're in a situation where you'd come into contact with somebody and you've been told to self-isolate, they said that that was important to do. People needed to do that. And now there's this suggestion that because not as many people as they need to do it have been doing so, that it's going to be cut down. Does that sound right?
Yeah, in an ideal world, people would be self-isolating for 14 days because we know that in some people, the incubation period appears to be a little bit longer and symptoms can occur after 10 days. So it would be a compromise. They're looking at this, the SAGE group are looking at whether, if we reduce it to 7 to 10 days, for example, people would comply more with self-isolation. Currently, we know from the excellent symptom survey tracker that was carried out by, that's set up by the group at King's, that about 11% of people are properly self-isolating. And that completely, it means that it's completely insufficient to control the spread of the virus. You know, if you're going to have self-isolation, it's got to be done properly. So reducing it to 7 to 10 days would be a compromise. But what we do know from most studies, it's likely that most people would develop symptoms within that period. And if they obviously develop symptoms, they would stay self-isolating for longer. So if it helps people to comply and it works better than the current situation, then it would be worth
Do you think it will, though, Hills? I mean, do you think it is going to make a difference? People will go, well, actually, OK, it's only 7 days, I'll do it. Or they'll say, oh, well, you know, if it's now 7 days, I probably don't need to self-isolate at all. They don't know what they're doing, so I just won't bother.
I think for a lot of people, 14 days is a very long time. 7 days is doable. That's my feeling. I'm not basing that on any evidence or any science, but I think that people could take a week off without too much difficulty. But 14 days seems like a long stretch for many people. So if we can reach a compromise and it's more effective than what we're currently doing, it would be worth looking at.
It still relies on an effective track and trace system, doesn't it? Which, you know, according to the latest results, we seem to be getting at worse rather than better at. But on the front page of the Mail today, it's got this 12-minute COVID test in Boots. What do you make of this one? Because it sounds quite promising that the results would come back in just 12 minutes. It's 97% accurate. It'll be available in a fortnight, but it will cost people £120.
Yeah, they've currently got a test which is a 48-hour result, which is £120. That is a PCR test, similar to the ones that are being done at NHS testing centres. This new test, which produces results in 12 minutes, would be a bit of a game changer, but I think we have to make sure that it has got full approval and that it really does have 97% accuracy. It hasn't been reported how many tests can be done in an hour. It might take 12 minutes to do, but how many of those tests can be done in a day? It's a small machine, not much bigger than a card reader, apparently. So I would just be a little bit cautious on this one to see how effective it is.
Just to clarify, this 12-minute test is it costs 120.
You know, sorry, that was my mistake. That's the 48-hour one.
That's the 48-hour.
Available from today, that costs £120.
So how much
we don't yet know the price.
We don't.
Of the 12-minute one, but...
Well, if the 48-hour one is £120, I can't imagine that's going to be much cheaper, is it?
No.
This is not, by the way, for people with symptoms. It's not really designed for people with symptoms. They should go to NHS testing centres. This is for people who want peace of mind, people who've got no symptoms, but perhaps they want to go and visit their elderly parents and don't want to put them at risk. They want to know to make sure their test is negative. Might be for people going back to work, for employers to use for all their staff. It might be for people who want to travel. And want that test quickly because the test has to be done within 72 hours of travelling to those. I
just worry though, you know, if they're £120, that kind of price bracket, then again it's that thing where the poor, the people with less money are going to be worse off through this crisis, and we're already talking a bit later about the issue with free school meals, etc. And this is yet another example, isn't it? I mean, £120 is nothing for some of us who can go and buy that test if we really need to, but for most people in this country, £120, £50 is a lot of money, especially if you've got a large family to get you all tested.
In many, many ways, this pandemic has picked on the poor and the disadvantaged for many different reasons, and you're absolutely right. If private testing is going to be rolled out, then that is, again, it's going to affect the disadvantaged more than anybody.
Well, one thing we're all pinning our hopes on is this vaccine. Front page of the Eye today, vaccine hopes rise. The US disease expert, Dr. Anthony Fauci, has been speaking about this. He spoke about it yesterday, and it could be approved by the end of this year. I mean, we're all sort of watching and waiting, aren't we, to see exactly when it's going to get the go-ahead, when they'll say, yes, it's safe and effective, although NHS key workers will get this first, so it could be quite a while before the rest of the population.
No, that's absolutely right. Look, there are about 200 vaccines globally that are under development. We have two really promising ones, one in the States, one here from the Oxford group. And it looks as if those trials are going to be completed fairly soon. We will have published data eventually on their safety and efficacy. But they're looking very promising. Everyone's being increasingly optimistic about this, and some NHS trusts have sent messages to their staff saying, be ready to have your 2 doses 28 days apart, perhaps in December or early in January. Now, that's gives reason to raise hopes. We just need final approval. There's talk about approving the vaccine even before we get to the end of the Brexit negotiations period, so that it would get approval without EU approval. So that would be a first. But of course, in a pandemic situation, that's something that you need to do. For everybody else, other than healthcare workers and high-risk patients, it might be early spring, maybe even summer, before everybody who is eligible can get a vaccine. And we still need to know how effective it is. It's 50% efficacy. That would still be worth having for those particularly vulnerable groups, but let's wait and see. But certainly the news is promising.